All right, welcome to another episode of the Nailsin Ratings. Gonna review Savage Dragon, and probably more to the point, its writer, artist, creator, Erik Larsen. The Image Comics founders, of which Erik Larsen is one, began their own company after they were superstar artists, comic book artists in the late 80s and early 90s for Marvel Comics, primarily Marvel Comics. And they had enough of dealing with the companies and decided, hey, why don't we form our own? And so they did. And it's been largely successful. It's there to this day, despite, once again, the industry is in a massive decline. Will it survive? Tune in to find out. But Savage Dragon was one of the two titles out of the Image Comics at the time when I was just sort of briefly glancing at it that I thought had the potential for longevity. And was sort of right, but not quite. The two were Savage Dragon and Spawn. Spawn was the big winner. It became, more popular. It got a movie deal and all that sort of thing, and a cartoon series on HBO. Savage Dragon had a Saturday morning cartoon. I forget how many episodes. It wasn't much. You can look it up. But for the most part, it kind of fell into obscurity and has a very small cult following, which apparently I'm a member of. I've been collecting Savage Dragon since 1997. I enjoy Erik Larsen's work, his artwork, and a lot of people say it's not as tight as it used to be. That is true, but it's consistent with the style that he's developed, and so I still enjoy it. As one of the complaints for it is that it's too silly sometimes, because he does have quite the sense of humor, and it tends to parody a lot of the tropes and archetypes of comic books. And a lot of people think, well, it's just like a superhero spoof, like, Super Duper Man or something like that. And there's some truth to that, but I think it straddles both worlds of, parody of superheroes and the actual superhero world, which he knows a lot about. He's quite the comic historian. A lot of details will come out and stuff he knew about, old artists and Jack Kirby and stuff like that. And he's certainly a student of the Kirby school. And so I think overall, the structure of his story was good. Obviously, I followed it. Lately, it's not so great. The comic book series has been set in real time, so characters age, they get fat and old, and you're going to need new, younger people to take over. And so this was an interesting idea in the sense that you can't really do that with mainstream characters because they're a brand, and so they can't get much older than maybe 35, and that's about it. So in this case, the idea was that Savage Dragon himself, he had a son, and eventually the son would grow to adulthood and take his place, which he did. And he just recently killed off the original Savage Dragon. And the way he did it was pretty consistent with how things can happen in the Savage Dragon series. You never really know when someone will go. Although you could see it coming within the story, but nevertheless, there's no dignity in death in Savage Dragon. And so he's gone, and now that's it. Malcolm Dragon, the son, is now the main character. The problem is Malcolm Dragon is just boring. He's just a flat character. There's very little personality there. He's just as sweet as sugar and all that stuff. And it's just, I don't know. He needs to give him something more and make him more. There's ways to go about it, but it's compounded even worse now that he's married to this really horrible character, Maxine, who is there's just nothing to like there. She's just annoying, and she looks 12 years old. That's really disturbing, and she's constantly wearing the little, I don't know what you call those, the sailor Japanese schoolgirl outfit, whatever that is. I don't know. But there she is. She's a mother of 3 kids now, and she's still dressing like. Plus, she's a complete nymphomaniac. He's got that. There's a lot of close to being porn in Savage Dragon. And for a while, he kind of backed off from that. And then all of a sudden, just suddenly that was everywhere. Malcolm was having 3-ways and 4-ways. He banged his stepsister, just all this stuff, and it just didn't serve much of a purpose. There was some unexpected pregnancies that went into a plot about the babies of Malcolm Dragon and all that. But I guess that's about it. And but Maxine is disturbing in that she, like I said, looks 12 and even talks like a child most of the time. It's just, but even if you fix that, she's, annoying. But that's only one of the problems, because even if she got, killed off or something like that, you still got the problem of Malcolm not having much of a personality. Now, the death of his wife might be a story where it, gives him more depth and stuff like that. I don't know. Can he save that? Yeah, he could, I suppose, but I don't think he wants to. He seems pretty enamored with the status quo of the book. So, yeah, I'm kind of running out of reasons to keep reading it. And things like the recent issue really kind of makes the decision for me. The latest issue, of course, is an anti-Trump issue, or is it? Trump's on there as a giant monster. The plot is that Trump, wants to ban all the aliens. Now, in the Savage Dragon comic, they recently had an alien invasion, destroyed the city. God knows how many people they killed. So it's a terrible analogy for what Mr. Larsen's trying to say here, that, he's a xenophobic racist and anybody who voted for him is. And he completely uses the broad brush. If you voted for Trump, you're an evil Nazi. That's it. There's no wiggle room there. So you can't really fight bigotry with more bigotry. And the broad brush is always the tool of the bigot. And I mean, if by chance he would hear this video, he would not have a clue as to what I'm talking about. And, well, that's what happens when you're myopic. But this is what he displays in this comic book. So it's more targeted against anybody who votes for Trump or supports him or what have you, than it is to Trump himself. Which makes it a bit more egregious. Because Trump, look, he's an obnoxious a-hole. He's always been that way. But that doesn't necessarily mean he's the villain. And you can go into the weeds of this about how wrong Erik is about thinking this is that Muslim ban. It's not a Muslim ban. There were 7 countries. They took Iraq off at 6, all of which are currently in civil wars. You might want to think about that. Obama did the same thing with Iraq when there was trouble. Not a peep out of anybody like Mr. Larsen or anybody else on the left. So it's just, I mean, look, for God's sakes, they're screaming over his wife's shoes. So it doesn't really matter what he does. It's the only way he could possibly save grace, I suppose, is if Trump would switch parties. Now, if he would do that, maybe that would make him suddenly a demigod amongst the left. The dialogue in the book throws around that the reason he's getting rid of Obamacare is because he can't stand the fact that there was a black man in the White House. This is just absolute garbage. All the problems with Obamacare, and Obama had to bribe his own party just to get it passed. He lied about what the savings would be, the whole structure of how it's funded. Come on. But no, he doesn't bother defending all of that or the idea that it's just to help poor people or what have you. No, you're just a racist if you don't want it. So, again, broad brush. So, knowing Erik's politics, none of this really surprises me that much. He kind of went off the handle when Bush was president. He certainly sucked up to Obama like he was the second coming and that sort of thing. So having Trump here, it's an interesting thing, though, because like the analogy doesn't work, and a lot of times these analogies, because even like the X-Men gets praised because it's a metaphor for racism and stuff, because you shouldn't just hate people because they're different. Well, yeah, that's true, but black people and what have you don't have laser eyes, and their powers can't suddenly cause a nuclear explosion to go off or something like that. So it was, come on, that sounds like monsters. So, but yeah, it's a simplistic idea of getting the metaphor about being accepting and tolerant and all that sort of thing. But boy, here he has this massive alien invasion, and now everybody's a Nazi if they're not just ignoring any aliens around. So yeah, he defeats his own idea here. It's very sloppily done, and the problem here is this is the follow-up issue after the death of his main character. And they have the funeral and the opening parts, and that's fine and everything, and then this thing. This is where you have people on the left who are producing stories and television shows and all this stuff, and they're letting Donald Trump ruin their shows. And in this case, Donald Trump just ruined Erik Larsen's comic book here. Having a little snippet here and a panel there or something like that, which he's already done, yeah, good enough. But no, this changes the entire course of the story, because apparently Malcolm is on the run now. He's going to have to leave the country, and I think I've seen previews. He's going to have to move to Canada. So, yeah, he's changed the entire course. He's let Donald Trump do that to his comic book. And because he's got to get the word out to resist Donald Trump or whatever, that's not going to happen, Eric, especially when you're so sloppy at it. So here's a guy who let Donald Trump just smear excrement all over his product. And you're going to see more of this. Keep in mind, we got the fall season of television shows coming up, and they managed to get in a few little licks here and there, but that was because they were working on those shows before the election was over, and they may have gotten a little bit of shows done before the end of the season so they can add in some more Trump dialogue, stuff like that. But boy, that's just the tip of the iceberg. Get ready for 24/7 Trump on every show and stuff you want to see. And yeah, they're going to let it destroy their programs. Unless they learn to keep it subtle and learn how to weave ideas and stuff in their plot lines. That's one thing, but yeah, we'll see who's better at it than others. Yeah, I wonder how they'll work it into The Walking Dead. Maybe a Trump zombie walking around in the background. Certainly they'll say Negan is Trump, something like that. So there you go. We'll probably see that. Meanwhile, back to Savage Dragon. The comic book can't really afford to have stupid things like this. And if it was just this one shot, it wouldn't be that big of a deal. But of course, like I said, the previews reveal he's going to leave the country. And so I guess Savage Dragon will now be taking place in Canada until Trump leaves office. So how about that? That's just great. Boy, would this be enough to make me stop buying Savage Dragon? No, even though I did vote for Trump, I do concede he is an obnoxious a-hole. And that part of it you could do. But here is another example of where somebody on the left, in this case Erik Larsen, manages to do, character-wise, out a-hole Trump. And, people who can make Trump look like the sanest man in the room, who could do that? That seems impossible. Well, the left found a way. And this is what you got here. And it's sad because, like I said, I enjoyed the comic book. I mean, it's not just this. It's just the attitude that is just so extremist and myopic and whatever, to where he recently tweeted this image during the Harvey disaster. And it just, what the hell are you doing? I mean, this is just, and I mean, if Hillary Clinton had been president, well, Harvey wouldn't have happened. And I mean, you're literally hearing that. I mean, Trump, I guess, I mean, I'm surprised there weren't people blaming Trump for the sun going out during the eclipse. I mean, at this point, it's just absurd. But man, when you're that deep in the pool of Kool-Aid, you'll believe anything. And so, yeah, that's really nasty. It's really bad. So, boy, I've got a decision to make. But it's bad because, look, Erik Larsen, like I said, his work ethic is second to none, and that's important because I think a lot of the image artists were lazy. There was a lot of promises for different collaborative efforts that they produced, and he's the only one who produced anything out of it. And he's certainly a true comics fan who made it pro, and that's always a cool story. He's good to his fans. I mean, when you ask him questions, he'll answer you, but, don't be snotty. I mean, granted, he's being really nasty here, but if you go attack him or whatever, what good is that going to do? He's not going to listen to you. But again, like I said, his work ethic is great in this era of people who are proud. If they make 12 issues, they think that's a major achievement. And this guy has got over 200 issues of this comic book. So he gets 5 stars on work ethic alone, and a professional a career here that deserves the respect. And there's a lot to be said for that. But this issue gets no stars. It's trash. And the series as a whole, with a boring lead that apparently the writer is too scared to give him depth and stuff because, I don't know, I guess he thinks he'll be called racist and stuff if Malcolm messes up or does something stupid or thinks something that's wrong and is proven otherwise. Something along those lines, the sort of thing that happens to everybody. Let your character be human, but he's got to remain a demigod. So that's problematic of that, but that's really not as bad as with supporting a guy who apparently thinks I'm a monster. Look, I live in the South in Louisiana. I tend to vote Republican. I've given up on the Democrats a long time ago. And if you really know the history of that party, even a guy like Erik Larsen would too. But the idea of people like Larsen who probably think I live in this bigoted, nasty, racist area and black people live in fear all the time and all that sort of thing. No. You know what happens? Every time I go to town, you look around, interracial couples. You know what the reaction is to it? Nothing. Nobody cares because it's just normal. And in the mind of Erik Larsen, this doesn't exist. We're all nasty people. We all want to secede from the Union, and we want to refight the Civil War so the South can win. No, that is not true. That is very, very, very ignorant thinking of anyone to just broad brush an entire mass of people like that. Like bigots do. All right, that's it. 5 gold stars on his career overall. I would recommend most of the Savage Dragon, the earlier issues. Check those out. They are good. But the current series, as it is, can't recommend that. No stars so far. And I've got to decide if I'm going to buy issue 227. I don't know. Thanks for watching. Sorry for being long in it, but look, I really liked the series. I liked the guy. It's heartbreaking, but what can I do? I got to be honest. So anyway, thanks for listening.
And that was the Nailsin ratings. Commentary from me, Mr. Nailsin. The views and opinions expressed in the Nailsin ratings do not necessarily reflect those held by Radio Misfits or any other entity that Mr. Nailsin may or may not be involved with. So any complaints or comments should be sent to @Mr. Nailsin on Twitter, where they'll be promptly ignored and or blocked.